Georgia to the list of states whose delegates the RNC has stolen, yes, stolen from Donald Trump. Speaking of stolen delegates, Ted Cruz seems to take great pride and satisfaction in being part of the sleazy, slimy, underhanded shenanigans. And Witless actor and shameless liberal George Clooney says he wants to get the big money out of politics, which is why he threw a $353,000 per couple fundraiser for Hillary Clinton. My name is Howard Riell, and this is Real Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com and on Facebook and YouTube and Tumblr, and in the book Real Truth, Stay Angry. And of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM The Lion. Call-in number 877-254-7524. My friends, welcome back. Let's begin with an open letter from Donald J. Trump. I quote, "On Saturday, April 9th, Colorado had a, quote, election without voters. Delegates were chosen on behalf of a presidential nominee, yet the people of Colorado were not able to cast their ballots to say which nominee they preferred. A planned vote had been canceled, and 1 million Republicans in Colorado were sidelined. In recent days, something all too predictable has happened. Politicians furiously defended the system. These are the rules, we were told over and over again. If the rules can be used to block Coloradans from voting on whether they want better trade deals or stronger borders or an end to special interest vote buying in Congress, well, that's just the system and we should embrace it. Let me ask America a question. How has the system been working out for you and your family? I, for one, am not interested in defending a system that for decades has served the interests of political parties at the expense of the people. Members of the club, the consultants, the pollsters, the politicians, the pundits, the special interests, grow rich and powerful while the American people grow poorer and more isolated. No one forced anyone to cancel the vote in Colorado. Political insiders made a choice to cancel it, and it was the wrong choice. Responsible leaders should be shocked by the idea that party officials can simply cancel elections in America if they don't like what the voters may decide. The only antidote to decades of ruinous rule by a small handful of elites is a bold infusion of popular will. On every major issue affecting this country, the people are right and the governing elite are wrong. The elites are wrong on taxes, on the size of the government, on trade, on immigration, on foreign policy. Why should we trust the people who've made every wrong decision to substitute their will for America's will in this presidential election? Here, I part ways with Senator Ted Cruz. Mr. Cruz has toured the country bragging about his voterless victory in Colorado. For a man who styles himself as a warrior against the establishment, you would know it from his list of donors and endorsers, you'd think he'd be demanding a vote for Coloradans. Instead, Mr. Cruz is celebrating their disenfranchisement. Likewise, Mr. Cruz loudly boasts every time party insiders disenfranchise voters in a congressional district by appointing delegates who will vote the opposite of the expressed will of the people who live in that district. That's because Mr. Cruz has no democratic path to the nomination. He's been mathematically eliminated by the voters. While I am self-funded, Mr. Cruz takes in millions from special interests. Yet despite his financial advantage, Mr. Cruz has won only 3 primaries outside his home state and trails me by 2 million votes, a gap that will soon explode even wider. Mr. Cruz loses when people actually get to cast ballots. Voter disenfranchisement is not merely part of the Cruz strategy, it is the Cruz strategy. The great irony of this campaign is that the Washington cartel that Mr. Cruz rails against is the very group he's relying upon in his voter nullification scheme. My campaign strategy is to win with the voters. Ted Cruz's campaign strategy is to win despite them. What we're seeing now is not a proper use of the rules, but a flagrant abuse of the rules. Delegates are supposed to reflect the decisions of voters, but the system is being rigged by party operatives with double-agent delegates who reject the decision of voters. The American people can have no faith in such a system. It must be reformed. Just as I've said that I will reform our unfair trade, immigration, and economic policies that have also been rigged against Americans. So too will I work closely with the chairman of the Republican National Committee and top GOP officials to reform our election policies. Together we'll restore the faith and the franchise of the American people. We will leave no doubt that voters, not donors, choose the nominee. How have we gotten to the point where politicians defend a rigged delegate selection process with more passion than they ever defended America's borders? Perhaps it's because politicians care more about securing their private club than about securing their country. My campaign will, of course, battle for every last delegate. We'll work within the system that exists now while fighting to have it reformed in the future, but we will do it in the right way. My campaign will seek maximum transparency, maximum representation, and maximum voter participation. We will run a campaign based on empowering voters, not sidelining them. Let us take inspiration from patriotic Colorado citizens who've banded together in protest. Let us make Colorado a rallying cry on behalf of all the forgotten people whose desperate pleas have for decades fallen on the deaf ears and closed eyes of our rulers in Washington, D.C. The political insiders have had their way for a long time. Let 2016 be remembered as the year the American people finally got theirs. Unquote. My friends, great words, and here's a related item from Breitbart. Donald Trump supporters walked out of a delegate election in Georgia on Saturday to protest the vote that robbed Trump of all his slated delegates from a district he won in the primary. A CRUZ-Rubio alliance at this district convention in Beaufort, Georgia, helped to knock Trump supporters out of the district's national delegation altogether. CRUZ supporters implied that Trump's people would, quote, embarrass the district at the convention in Cleveland. Then things got heated. Unquote. My friends, it's just theft. It's just spit in your face. It's the government's hand, it's the politicians' hands in your pockets. Do you care? I hope you do. I hope you do. And I hope you'll get angry. And I hope you get busy. And I hope you get active. And I hope you say to the politicians, to the RNC in the state of Colorado and elsewhere, no! No! Not in America. It's Monday. And it's real truth. I'll be right back.
I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriots Trading, and I would like to encourage everyone to make sure they are prepared financially as the Federal Reserve continues to destroy the value of the dollar. Since the closing of the gold window in 1971, the Federal Reserve has led the way in the explosion of debt and the devaluing of your money. They openly say that they need 2% inflation, which simply means they hope to devalue your money, and they want to do this every single year, year after year. I know it's hard to understand, but the Federal Reserve believes in prosperity through debt and growth via the devaluation of your future. To learn more about how to protect yourself, visit us at allamericangold.com or call us at 800-951-0592 and protect yourself against the devaluing of your money. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 14 and 15. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debt, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
friends, welcome to a brand new week of Real Truth. I am Howard Riell. Nothing brand new about me, but I'm here anyway. Donald Trump, I will readily admit, is a lot smarter than I am. Here he is being interviewed on Fox News saying that as a business guy, he can spot a rigged system. But you know, you don't have to be a business guy. You don't even have to be a genius. Anybody with eyes can see the system is rigged by the sleazy politicians who don't give a rat's butt about the American people, but only about their phony baloney positions, their jobs, their salaries, their influence. It's disgusting start to finish. Here's Trump on Fox News. Here we go.
Joining us now is Donald Trump, the Republican presidential frontrunner. Good morning, Mr. Trump. Good morning. Well, it's good to have you. You've been out there complaining about the delegate system, and I wonder, is this a short-term political play where you're trying to get your voters out in some of these final key primaries, or is this a more long-term play where if you don't get the delegates at the convention, you're trying to stir up a real revolt here?
Well, really, Ed, it's not a play at all. I'm winning by a lot. I have millions more votes than CRUZ, and now CRUZ is in third place, as you see. He's fading fast, and he doesn't really like that. He can't handle that too well, actually. But, millions more votes, and I also have many more delegates. But it's a rigged system. I see it. I'm a smart guy. I'm a business guy, and nobody ever really understood the system until I brought it out. And it's a rigged system. When you look at Wyoming, when you look at Colorado, the bosses are picking the people. Wyoming actually said they're doing it in order to save some cost because they didn't want to go to an election with the people. They said that yesterday, and I said, wow, that's something. And the other thing is I'm funding my own campaign, so I'm putting up my own money. So people would say, why don't you go out? I said, because I'm not going to go out and waste a lot of money. I've spent less money than almost anybody else, and I'm in first place by a lot. And, that's maybe the kind of president you want to have, frankly, if you want to know the truth. But I don't want to waste money going to Wyoming, sending CRUZ over there for months and months and months, knowing you can't get because you're not going to beat the bosses. But I've beaten the bosses, and I'm beating them. One instance is in Illinois. The Ricketts family, they own the Chicago Cubs. I'm no longer a Cubs fan, by the way, because I think they're terrible. But the Ricketts family is spending a fortune on fighting me. I never even met these people, and yet I won Illinois. Now, they spent a fortune fighting me in Illinois, and I beat them in Illinois, and they own the Chicago Cubs. So good luck to the Chicago Cubs.
And Mr. Trump, you said that no one was really talking about this delegate process until you started shining a light on it, which you're probably right about that. Although the RNC chairman, Reince Priebus, is taking umbrage with that. He says, look, we've known about this for a long time. Listen to him and Senator CRUZ on this issue.
I gotta say, it ain't rocket science. If anyone is running an effective and competent presidential campaign, they ought to be able to figure out how to actually go and win an election.
These are the same rules that have been around for 160 years. So the problem is obviously most people never really cared about our rules and how we nominate someone for our party, and now everyone's paying attention.
Now everyone's paying attention. What do you say to that, Mr.
Well, let's start with Lion Ted Cruz.
Well, let's start with this. Here you got Ted Cruz and Reince Priebus making the same argument that a lot of the idiots on TV are making. Look, those are the rules. Well, that's not very much of an argument, is it? I mean, take that kind of reasoning and take it back in time. Go back to the American South back in the 1930s or the 40s or 50s, where they had colored-only water fountains and colored-only toilets. And if an African American came up to someone like Ted Cruz or Reince Priebus and said, this is demeaning, it's degrading, I'm being treated like a second-class citizen by being forced to use a colored-only drinking fountain, Cruz or Priebus would have said, well, yeah, but those are the rules. And when women didn't have the vote, they were discriminated against by not being allowed to vote as every other man citizen was, and they said it's not fair for women not to be able to vote. Ted Cruz and Reince Priebus would have said, yeah, but those are the rules. And in Germany, when the SS was walking through the streets, smashing Jewish-owned businesses' windows and forcing Jews to wear yellow stars, Ted Cruz and Reince Priebus and the pundits on cable TV would have said, yeah, but those are the rules. So if you have this discussion with anyone, and they give you that answer, well, yeah, but those are the rules, say to them, yeah, those are the rules. Now shove them up your ass. Let's go back to the video.
He lies more than any human being that I've seen in a long time, and talks about the campaign. Well, I'm beating him badly. I'm spending much less money. He's spending special interest money and his lobbyist money because his lobbyists tell him what to do and when to do it. I spend my own money, and yet I'm way ahead of him, millions of votes ahead of him in the primaries. Millions. I mean, I'm not talking about like 2 votes. Millions of votes ahead, and I'm beating him by hundreds of delegates. And yet, I tell you, the system is rigged because they don't want me to be there because I understand, and I just understand how it works, and they don't like that I understand. They don't like that I don't want their money, and it bothers them because they won't have influence, and we can do what's right for the American people. But when you look at, when you look at Ted Cruz, that's the way it is. He talks about the election. I mean, the guy is losing badly. He can't even win unless he gets to a second ballot.
But does this mean that the truths that seem to have been there with the RNC, with you speaking out and Reince Priebus speaking out, is that truth dead, and are you thinking about an independent run again?
Well, it's not a question of truth. It's really a question of fairness to the people. The voters aren't voting. You take Colorado, you take Wyoming, they're not. You saw what happened yesterday in Colorado. They had a massive rally of people. And frankly, if it didn't rain out, they would have had a tremendous, I mean, it was big anyway, but they would have had, tremendous numbers of people. And that's happening in a lot of other places.
It is
I win when I
Wyoming. Mr. Trump, you're right. It is being mirrored in Wyoming. They have 14 delegates up for grabs, and it's Republican powerhouse types that are going to be picking according to
That's
some.
right.
But it is the rules, and it was that way from the beginning. And from the Cruz campaign, from their side, they're saying we've put in the face time, we've put in the ground game, we've put in the effort, and over the long haul, and that.
All right, again, take that reasoning. Take the government of I don't know, Biloxi, Mississippi, back in 1950. They would say, we went to the expense to create colored-only drinking fountains. We spent money on the signs that say colored-only toilets. And those are the rules. What are you going to do about it? Well, America took rules like that and destroyed them because they're unfair, they're dishonest, and they're demeaning, just like these rules are. And so if this blonde bimbo on Fox News is going to say, yeah, but those are the rules, I think she ought to go back to waiting tables at whatever bar they got her at. Because as a political analyst and pundit, she looks good in the tight skirt, and that's about where it ends.
The way you win a presidential campaign. If Donald Trump is a deal maker and doesn't let anything get in his way, why didn't he know the rules and set out the ground game the same way?
Because I don't want to waste millions of dollars going out to Colorado knowing the system is rigged. I don't want to waste millions of dollars going out to Wyoming many months before to wine and dine and to essentially pay off all these people, because a lot of it's a payoff. You understand that. They treat them, they take them to dinner, they get them hotels. I mean, the whole thing's a big payoff. Has nothing to do with democracy. I've understood this for a long time. I've never said anything because, frankly, I wasn't involved in politics other than on the other side. I used to be establishment. But
So this Twinkie on Fox News, Donald Trump, you're a deal maker, you're a businessman. Why didn't you know about these rules and why didn't you accommodate them? Well, here's a better question. Rosa Parks, why didn't you just sit in the back of the bus? You know the rules. Ask the people on Fox News, ask Ted Cruz, ask Reince Priebus, ask the establishment, hey, those are the rules. Okay, so Rosa Parks sits in the back of the bus, right? That's not how America grows. It's not how liberty flourishes. It's not how freedom is exercised. You don't defend disgusting rules, discriminatory, dishonest rules. You change those rules, and by the way, you excoriate the people who created and live according to those rules. What about Reince Priebus? He's known these rules have been fake, phony, and rigged for his entire tenure with the Republican Party. He's never tried to change them. In fact, he's on the air defending them. Maybe Reince Priebus needs to go. Maybe all the insiders of the Republican National Committee need to go. Maybe the American people need to insist on that. Because if you're going to hide behind rules, well, then you're no better than the guys down south who had colored-only water fountains and restaurants that blacks could not walk into. After all, those were the rules, right? So maybe rules don't come from God. Maybe we make the rules, and maybe sometimes we make bad rules, and we got to change them. But you don't leave them in place and cheat people, cheat the American people out of their most fundamental right, which is the vote.
You know, when you listen to Reince, well, two things. First of all, I I'm the only one that's going to beat Hillary Clinton. But Ted Cruz can't beat me when it comes to voting. And that's why I have 22 states, and he has, what does he have, 9 or 10 or something, and, millions of votes ahead. And by the way, despite the rigging of the system, many delegates. Now, as far as Reince is concerned, he said the system hasn't changed. Well, it did change. When I went to Colorado, when I announced in June, the system is one way. After they saw that I was going to win Colorado, in August, they changed the system. And he keeps saying it wasn't changed. But when they saw that I was going to win Colorado, like I did Florida, like I did Arizona, and like I did, many other states, then what they did is they changed the system. It's a crooked deal. It's a rigged system.
I want to get your take on what Ted Cruz slammed you for during the March debate when he was criticizing you for this. Let's take a look at.
All right, let's not go. Ted Cruz is a hypocrite, and that's what the video clip he was about to play will show. You can go on DonaldJTrump.com and you'll find this video. Watch it and share it. The bottom line is this: don't you ever look me in the face and say, hey, those are the rules. We used to have slavery in this country. Back then, those were the rules. Would anybody with an IQ over 20 ever try and defend slavery? Of course not. Well, what do you mean? Those were the rules. That was the law of the land. It said you could own slaves. So stop with the nonsense. If we can't get a decent, honest vote in America, what have we got? We got nothing. We got guts, as we used to say back in New York. Tomorrow's the New York primary. Donald Trump is going to stomp all over Ted Cruz and John Kasich. I have trouble remembering that John Kasich is still in the race. And Trump is dominating the entire election process going back to last June. It makes the Republican National Committee look bad. It makes them look dishonest, makes them look shady and sleazy and slimy, which, by the way, it is. Item from Breitbart. The Donald Trump campaign is accusing Senator Ted Cruz and his campaign of staging a coordinated attack in Georgia that led to pro-Trump delegate candidates being challenged and deposed in every corner of the state, which Trump had won resoundingly in the primary. Item also from Breitbart. Social media posts along with Cruz's campaign website reveal that Senator Ted Cruz supporters in the Colorado Republican Party were responsible for crushing an effort to give Colorado the ability to vote in the state primary. In May of 2015, 4 Colorado Senate Republicans killed an initiative to create a presidential primary in 2016, reported the Denver Post. Quote, under the bill, Colorado would have held a presidential primary in March that ran parallel with the state's complicated caucus system. When it came before the Senate Appropriations Committee, 4 Republicans voted to kill the bill with 3 Democrats supporting it. Unquote. They were Cruz supporters. They were Cruz Republicans, and they said to the people of Colorado, screw you! Screw you! We can't take a chance on you voting. This isn't about the will of the people, it's about our will. So the voters in Colorado can go to hell. That's what the Republicans in the RNC and in the Colorado branch of the RNC said. And so, if you can hear my voice, if you live in Colorado, even if you don't live in Colorado, call the offices of the RNC in Colorado and tell them they're criminals. Tell them they're punks. Tell them you won't stand for it. Tell them you insist that they resign or be fired. And tell them without your ability to vote, the Republican Party will never, ever, ever win another election or get another dollar in donations. We'll be back.
don't know that our government is out of control. What are the points of people in it? How can we, the people, bring it back to the people's servants, not the people's masters? Liberty Forum and the Freedom Rider says officials in government must be made accountable for their actions. AccountabilityRevolution.com is the
place to go to learn how you can actually make that happen. Become their judges, not their slaves. AccountabilityRevolution.com.
Great Plains Power has been providing reliable electrical power systems in the Rocky Mountain area since 1992. Our systems rely on the sun to help make you self-reliant for your power needs. Solar energy can be scaled to fit any situation, from complete power independence to backup power for the short term. Our expertise focuses on standalone power, but we have extensive experience with utility interactive systems as well. Custom-tailored capabilities as modest emergency lighting all the way to commercial-scale power. Great Plains Power is a full-service company. We service everything we sell. We provide and design turnkey packages, custom-designed system, and parts for do-it-yourself. With more than 20 years of specialized experience at your disposal, let us know what your power concerns or goals are. Reach us by phone or the internet. Call 303-239-9963. That's 303-239-9963. Or go to GreatPlainsSolar.com. Now this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 19 through 21. Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
Piccolo's restaurant in Denver reminds us that over 750,000 children were reported missing last year. Over 58,000 of these were abducted by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's restaurant in Denver. It's not only the best Italian and Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757-5166. 303-757-5166. Piccolo.
And by the way, my friends, this has nothing to do with the Republicans. If you're a Democrat, you see the way they're screwing Bernie Sanders out of delegates with these super delegates business. It just stinks. It's business as usual, it's politics as usual, and it's poison for America. All right, let's jump ship to, speaking of poison for America, immigration coming through Mexico, illegal and to a large degree legal, hurting America. The drug trade, drugs pouring over the open, porous, the open southern border. It's disgraceful. Even before Donald Trump started talking about it, Ann Coulter began talking about it, and here she is once again. Let her weigh in.
It's really great to be here. I guess you guys aren't the apathetic millennials. Glad to see that. Well, I don't know if you heard it since you've been busy at your mock convention, but the head of the CIA now says that ISIS is making chemical weapons. But don't worry, Obama's on it. He immediately got on Air Force One and flew to LA for 2 fundraisers and an appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres show. So he's right on top of things. It's just everything for the last, approximately 7 years and 20 days. Everything on the liberal wish list has been realized. They've turned a victory in Iraq into a defeat. We got socialized healthcare, something that has been on the left's to-do list since FDR was president. Finally got that one out of the way. We have the Supreme Court announcing that the Constitution, our founding fathers, buried deep within the Constitution, a right to gay marriage, and no one had noticed for 200 years. We have the suicidal deal with Iran. Just humiliation around the world, and Obama just ignoring the Constitution to push through executive amnesty. It's just been wave after wave of Republican loss. Normally, when you have an extremely left-wing government for a while, there's a pushback. Things level out. So after LBJ and the Great Society, we got Richard Nixon. After the Watergate Congress, very left-wing, also turned a United States victory abroad in Vietnam into a defeat. Whenever the Democrats get the reins of power, excellent, let's lose a war for America. So after the post-Watergate Congress, we got Ronald Reagan. And now, I mean, you probably, I don't know, you're very young. I certainly have met lots of Americans who have been Democrats, voted Democrat, conservative or libertarian idea, and get the California legislature to pass it. Any Republican running for president who disagrees with Donald Trump on immigration should be required to run and win the governorship of California on a social conservative and low tax platform. It's not going to happen. The state that gave us Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan will never elect a Republican statewide. Unless our current immigration policies are ended, all of America will be California without the great beaches and the fantastic weather. And I'm sorry to tell you, but you'll all be the Kardashians. Everything bad that has happened over the past approximately 7 years and 20 days happened as a result of Teddy Kennedy's 1965 Immigration Act. It was an evil, genius plan to change the voters in a more leftward direction. Now that we're near the tipping point, Democrats admit what they've done. Patrick Reddy, a Democratic consultant, has called the 1965 Immigration Act the Kennedy family's greatest gift to the Democratic Party. Big think tank guy, Roy Teixeira, out of Texas, after Obama was reelected, he said, I told you the immigrants would come through. He calls the 1965 Immigration Act George McGovern's revenge. And it's true, without post-1970 immigrants voting, Obama never would have been elected. I mean, just take Obamacare as an example. There's no Obamacare without the 1965 Immigration Act because there's no President Obama. And not only that, even if somehow it would have been, yes, even that pestilence John McCain would have been president. Without 100,000 Somalis being transplanted to Minnesota, Al Franken wouldn't have been close enough to steal that election and be the 51st vote for Obamacare. Without Obama being president, he wouldn't have been able to appoint 2 Supreme Court justices who upheld Obamacare. And without the 1965 Immigration Act, Romney would have won a larger victory than Ronald Reagan did against Jimmy Carter in 1980. So maybe ease up on the comparisons to who's the most like Reagan. Reagan would lose today. No, we'd be holding debates at the President Walter Mondale Museum and Library. Every American invented constitutional right, humiliating loss abroad, executive order, all of this is as a result of post-1970 immigrants coming in. Republicans aren't losing the argument. You keep thinking, oh, I just came up with a new way to phrase this particular argument. Why the XM Bank has to go. Here's my idea for entitlement reform. No, you're not losing the argument, Republicans. You're being outvoted. The Democrats changed the jury pool. This is why nothing matters but immigration. Don't be distracted by these other petty arguments about Hillary's emails or ISIS. There would be no ISIS without Teddy Kennedy's 1965 Immigration Act because there would be no President Obama. He would not have been able to withdraw every last troop from Iraq and turn our victorious war in Iraq into a loss. You may think you're making these very clever arguments, but 40 million third world immigrants aren't listening to them. They're not rushing out to get a candidate's policy papers. We are bringing in people who don't have experience with Western democracies, with constitutional democracies. They say, oh yeah, we love democracy. That's where I get elected and I do favors for all my friends and family. If you want to see how that works, go look at the California legislature or Marco Rubio. There used to being, let me say that 6 more times so the Rubio followers will be comfortable. I'll say it just like that. people from these third world countries are used to being bossed around by autocratic governments, voting tribally, and they are coming here and voting tribally again. 80% voting for the Democrats. Democrats have no more right to bring in 40 million people to vote for them than the Republicans do.
My friends, get Ann Coulter's book, Adios America, okay? Because she lays all this out in that book, and she's right. That 1965 Immigration Act by Ted Kennedy was basically a death knell for America, and we've been paying for it ever since, and it's threatening to engulf us. Get her book and read it. Item from mrctv.org. In a strange Meet the Press interview on Sunday, actor George Clooney admitted that the kind of fundraising he's doing for Hillary Clinton represented a, quote, obscene amount of money, but then claimed he was doing it to get the big money out of politics. Chuck Todd began the questioning by bringing up a $353,000 per couple fundraiser for Hillary Clinton that Clooney held 2 days earlier, and asking the movie star whether that was an obscene amount of money, unquote. My friends, fortunately for George Clooney, he's a liberal, which means he doesn't understand complex thought processes, which means he doesn't have to answer questions like that. And besides, Hillary Clinton voters, they don't want answers anyway. They just want Hillary. We'll be back. Alright guys, all done. I'm going to be posting this on Facebook and on YouTube and on Tumblr. Look for it, watch it, share it, discuss these things. Call the RNC in Colorado and tell them to kiss your ass. You won't be cheated out of your vote. I'll see you tomorrow.